Let's see, what can we say about John Scalzi you haven't heard before? I assume most of you have seen his blog. He's one of the best blog writers in the business. Only guy whose work ever actually bought a collection of the blog stories. Generally my response is it's either not worth reading or I read it once and it's funny and I move on. John's always been a little bit different.
Sorry.
Don't take that the wrong way.
No, not at all.
Ever since I read Old Man's World, it really took Tor about a year to nag me into reading it. I've been a fan of his work. I've read most of it since then. I did try to get his new novella here, but Subterranean Press did not get it published in time, so I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
I did try, and Bill basically told me to shut up and go away. So. No locked out. Is it locked out?
Unlocked.
Unlocked. I'll have something like end of the month, but not tonight. But he's here tonight to talk about his new novel, Lock In, and I'm assuming some of you might have read it, but I don't want to say too much about the plot, about the disease, the conspiracy. And, there's always, shall we say, a slight sarcastic level in these books. Please welcome John Scalzi.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm not going to lie, as I was walking down that stairwell, I was like, please don't let me fall on my ass. So, and get myself squared away. Okay. Hi. Hi. It's good to see you all. I'm very excited. I realize that most of you are probably sick of me, like sending tweets out going, please come, please come, please come, please come, please come. Because I don't want to admit to that authorial insecurity, But I remember one time, it was in 2006, I was at a Worldcon, and I passed a room where George Martin was giving a reading, and there were 6 people in that room. You're right. So if George Martin can get 6 people, I will get the one person who actually works on, at the bookstore and is just there as a pity watch. So, in any event, a couple of things. First thing I want to do is I actually want to get a picture of you all, if that's okay. Just hold on. And I think I'll have to use the panorama thing here, which is kind of cool if you think about it. So, all right. I want you all, now don't move. Okay, here we go. All right, there we go. There we go. I'm gonna send this to my mom. Go see. I actually did something with my life. There you go. That's perfect. Thank you so much. The other thing is that I promised all of you that if you came, I would tell you that secret thing that I can't tell other people yet. And so I'm going to tell you that you got to promise me that you're not going to tweet it or put it on a blog or do anything else. It's just between you and me. For the moment, I will probably be told I can tell it tomorrow, but for right now, it's just you people, which is that Lock In landed on the New York Times hardcover bestseller list. Which makes me really happy and also makes me really, really relieved. You know what I mean? Because I've been on it like a couple times before, and so now it's sort of like, if you don't land on it, you begin to think, is this the end? Is this where, the inevitable decline begins, and I am left somewhere on a steam grate? And so the good news is I've avoided that fate for at least one more book. So thank all of you, because I assume that many of you have already purchased it. I really do appreciate that. The third thing I want to say before we go and start is I really appreciate the fact that University Bookstore has me here. They've always been really good for me. Dwayne has been a huge supporter, and I don't mean that just because he's 6'8". I mean he's just been done wonderful things for me. And so one of the things that I would like for you to do, if you have not already done so, before you leave here tonight, is to buy a book. Not necessarily, it doesn't even have to be my book, but just buy a book, because the way that you show the bookstore that you appreciate them bringing in people and doing all this sort of stuff is to buy their wares so that they, can continue to be here and continue to do all this sort of stuff. So as a personal favor, buy a book. Thank you so much. I don't know if most of you know this, but before I started writing novels and stuff like that, there was a time I spent a year being an editor of a humor area on America Online, back when America Online was still Google, if you know what I mean. And actually, it's kind of funny because I'm going to go to Google tomorrow, and I went there a couple of years ago on a tour. And it's really kind of funny because they take you around their campus, which is lovely, and they show you around. They kind of give you the tour and all the ridiculous amenities that they have, so you never have to leave. And it's like, this is the pet daycare, and this over here is the chefs from 6 different continents, and here's where we do the laundry and the embroidering. And I said to them, that's awesome. This is just like what we had at America Online. And for some reason, they weren't pleased to have me say that. But regardless, but while I was there, I was the editor of a humor area, and I also wrote a weekly humor column. And so I went back from that time and pulled out a couple of things which I think are kind of fun to read. The first one I'm going to read to you is about pig roasting. And people are like, well, yes, of course. Whenever I go to a science fiction reading, I want to hear about pig roasting. And part of it was because the first 4 stops were, 2 of them were in Houston and Austin, which is Texas, and then Raleigh and Chapel Hill, which are North Carolina. And those people are really big about barbecue. And they apparently have some sort of rivalry. And they were on no uncertain terms. It's like when I was in Texas, like, you're going to be going to North Carolina, right? They think that they do barbecue there. Well, I don't know what the hell they're doing out there. What is that? I don't know. You need to tell them that they need to get that shit right, And then I go to North Carolina, and they're like, oh, so you had the sauce and the occasional bits of pork, right? That's what they do in Texas. And I was just like, I just want you all to love each other, man. I don't have a pig in this hunt, I like it all. It's perfectly fine. There's not one true barbecue and all that sort of stuff. But since I knew that they were going to be, that this was part of their, tradition, just like beer and salmon, maybe, I don't know, is the thing here. You got to tell me. They're also coffee, I guess. Coffee. Because coffee beans are, of course, native to the Pacific Northwest. Honestly, I don't understand how that one happened, but I'm just gonna run with that. People are like, you're gonna have coffee when you're in Seattle, right? I'm like, I don't drink coffee. And they're like, they won't let you in the city. They will actually turn you around. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Coffee tastes like ass. And they're like, yes, thank you. You and I will have a meeting later. But honestly, so. In any event, I don't know, you guys eat pork around here? I don't know. It seems like you'd be vegan except for the salmon. All right. Anyway, so this is about the first time I ever went to a pig roast. Last week I mentioned to a coworker of mine that I was going to attend a pig roast that weekend. This being the first time I'd been invited to one, I was unsure of exactly what was going to happen. My coworker, apparently a veteran of the pig roasting genre, was only too happy to fill in the details. It's the only way to cook a pig, he declared, negating thousands of years of bacon, pork chops, spam, and potted meat food product with one imperious sweep. What you do is you take a pig, you stick a rod in it from mouth to tail, and then you cook it on an open pit for several hours. So you even cook the head, I asked. Absolutely, he said. He's like, oh yeah, that's what you do. I see you over there. Absolutely, he said. In fact, you can tear a chunk right off the pig's forehead and eat it while it's still cooking. That sounds sort of disgusting, I said. Disgusting? He appeared shocked. Man, that's the best part. I came away from this discussion with 2 thoughts. The first was simply the observation that there's a certain class of person who seems drawn to eat the most disturbing parts of an animal. Pig forehead / orangutan lips / fish genitals. Man, that's the best part. While one can appreciate this in that sort of Native American use all parts of the animal sense, it's still unsettling. If God had truly met man to think about the fact he was eating pig forehead / orangutan lips / fish genitals, he would not have invented the hot dog. My second thought was that this pig roast thing... Are you okay, sir?
I saw what you did there.
Okay, thank you. My second thought was that this pig roast thing might be more complicated than I originally suspected. And indeed it is. The flame broiling of an entire mammal is not something to take lightly. You don't approach the task of cooking a whole pig like you would approach a hamburger. You can't just slap it on the grill, flip it over a couple of times, lay some cheese on top, then accidentally drop it into the flaming briquettes and end up trying to fill up on potato salad. No, there's some serious planning involved. Here's what you need to cook an entire pig. 1, the pig. This, no doubt, to the great displeasure of the pig itself. Our pig was neither one of those polyploidial monstrosities that show up at county fairs looking horrifyingly like the farmer that brought it, nor one of those two-paid piglets that were so darn cute and babe. This was medium-sized, which in human terms is about the size of Macaulay Culkin or Labor Secretary Robert Reich, take your pick. And this is when you realize that I wrote this in the 90s. Our pig came without the forehead, which meant we had to forego the forehead 9 portion of the day, but which also made it easier for most of us to get through the food preparation process without thinking of Wilbur from Charlotte's Web. Our pig was also spared the indignity of having a metal rod pinioning it through its anterior and posterior orifices. On the other hand, it was split right down the middle and halved like a red banana, so I don't suppose from the pig's point of view that this was any better. Number 2. The cooking apparatus. Entire pigs are generally cooked over a pit, which is dug in the ground, filled with some sort of long-burning flammable object, charcoal briquettes, mesquite logs, Kenny G compact discs. It's good to see the Kenny G hate keep going. And then set ablaze. For our pig roast, digging a hole in the ground wasn't practical, so we had a huge industrial-strength grill, large enough to grill a Ford Explorer if one were in the mood. The alternator? Man, that's the best part. Number 3, the pig roasting guy. Unless you're itching for a family fun pack of trichinosis, you want the guy who's roasting your pig to have some experience. A pig roasting guy who comes from a long and proud line of pig roasters. Our pig roasting guy was JD, whose pig roasting skills were not in dispute. Every July 4th, JD would roast 3 entire pigs over a pit and invite most of the county over for a party. Pigs were known to run squealing if he came within 30 yards. I'm sorry. Rated V for vegan? I don't know. JD came complete with seasonings, barbecue sauce, and a dazzling array of electric utensils, but the most interesting things about JD were his gloves. Thick, black, galvanized rubber monsters, glistening with grease. Just the sort of thing you would want to wear if you were handling high voltage wires or planning to strangle the mailman. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out what they were for until JD put them on, hopped over to the grill, grabbed the pig with both hands, and then flipped the thing with one disturbingly graceful motion. This was the Greg Louganis of the pig roasting world. Once you have all of these things in place, the pig roasting pretty much takes care of itself. All you have to do is stand around with the other guys, drink beer, and every now and then nibble on this steaming hot chunk of flesh your pig roasting guy offers you in advance of the formal pig devouring. Each time you get an advanced pig chunk, you should chew appreciatively, gazing out into the distance as if lost in thought, and then turn to your pig roasting guy and say, "Now that's some damn fine pig." This is the standard response. Any deviation from the norm will cause your pig roasting guy to look at you with suspicion. So the next time that he offers you a pig chunk, it will probably have come from some part of the pig you would rather not have known about. Take it anyway, because man, that's the best part. All right, that's that. I read that piece to my daughter. She's like, "This is why I'm a vegetarian, you know." And I'm like, "I know, I get it." She's really funny because she's been a vegetarian since she's been 12. And I'm super proud of her because she's made that decision that that's what she wanted to do. And she stuck to it, even though we live in a very rural area where people are like, "Why would you do that to yourself? Bacon." You know, but she's kept it. But every once in a while, she'll just, she'll kind of sidle up to me and she's like, "I miss fried chicken," or something like that. And I'm always just like, "Be strong, honey, be strong." So super proud of her. I couldn't walk that road because bacon, So I'm just, yeah, she's a great kid. All right. So this is the last piece I'm going to read, and then we're going to open up to questions. So be thinking of the questions that you want to be asking. And this is about a piece about the end of summer and about lemonade stands. Just a show of hands, how many of you, when you were kids, had lemonade stands? Yeah, see? So, you know, great American tradition there. And also about free enterprise. So, here it goes. Yesterday was the last day of summer, and what a day it was. Here in Ohio, where I live, the sun dappled the trees in golden light, and it was just hot enough to remind you that it was still summer, even if only for one more day. Looking down the road, I could see 2 lemonade stands, children on the standby, ready to sell their last tangy glasses of the season. It was perfect, and I decided to get myself some lemonade. "Hey there," I said to the youngsters, a boy and a girl, sitting behind the first stand. "Got any lemonade left?" "Sure," said the boy, smiling up at me with an adorable gap-toothed grin. "I squoze the lemons myself. Do you want a cup?" "Absolutely," I said, and the boy grabbed a Dixie cup while the girl poured the lemonade. They were just so cute you could die. I was whisked back to my own days as a lemonade stand proprietor, and I felt now, as a customer, I was helping continue a generations-long summer tradition, an American tradition. "That'll be $1.50, the boy said. "What?" I said. "That'll be $1.50, the boy repeated. "Wow," I said. $1.50 is kind of steep for a Dixie cup worth of lemonade." The boy and the girl stopped smiling and looked at me sort of strangely. I immediately felt guilty. "You don't want the lemonade?" the boy said. "I didn't say that," I said. "It's just, we'll have to throw it out," the little girl piped up, her voice catching just a little bit. "We've already poured it for you, mister. We can't just put it back." Now they both looked at me like they were about to cry. It was terrible, an obvious letdown to what was heretofore the most perfect day of the year. So I figured, what the heck? "All right," I said, "done deal." Their adorable faces immediately perked up again, and I fished in my pocket for change. And then I was presented with another problem. "I have only 65 cents on me," I said. Their puckish faces darkened again, and this time there was suspicion in their eyes. And who could blame them? 2 times a deal had been struck. Both times, at the end of the deal, I backed away, citing previously undisclosed reservations. Clearly, I was the unreliable customer. Clearly, I was messing with their delightful cowlicked little heads. I felt slimier than a banana slug. The two went into a huddle. After a minute or two of whispers, the boy turned to face me. "All right. We don't normally do this, but we've decided to extend you a line of credit." "Great," I said, reaching for the Dixie cup. The boy kept his grip on the lemonade. "You just have to answer a few questions," he said. The little girl, reaching under the lemonade stand, pulled out a clipboard. "Have you ever defaulted on a loan or found yourself involved in bankruptcy proceedings?" she asked, the slightest lisp in her voice no doubt brought on by the absence of a front tooth. No. "Do you rent or do you own?" "I own," I said. "Hey, all I wanted was some lemonade, and you'll get some as soon as we're satisfied with your credit history," the boy said. "And you will love it. I squoze the lemons myself." "That was a lot cuter before you asked me if I rent," I said. "How much do you pay monthly on your mortgage?" the little girl asked. "I'm not going to answer that," I said, putting my foot down. The two looked at each other and then at me. Once again, I was imposing deal-breaking conditions. "Okay," the little girl said, in a tone of voice that expressed in no uncertain terms who the jerk was in this deal. "I'm phoning this into the credit bureau. It'll take a couple of minutes." She left, leaving me and the boy. "So, selling much lemonade?" I asked. "Some," he said. "Well within our sales projections for the month. Lower summer temperatures have depressed the lemonade market in general, and last winter's citrus freeze meant higher overhead. We've had to pass some of the cost on to the consumer." "No kidding," I said. He shot me a look. "Fortunately, we have some leeway thanks to a subsidy from a regulatory entity." Like, the Department of Agriculture? "No, our mom." The little girl came back. She did not look happy. You missed a payment on a J.C. Penney credit card in 2008, she said. Why didn't you tell us about that earlier? What's the big deal? I said. I made a double payment the next month. And anyway, that was over 6 years ago. You were a gamete in 2008. Well, I'm afraid we're not going to be able to offer you a line of credit, she said. You're just not an acceptable risk for us. Fine, I said. You know what? I'm going to that other lemonade stand. You kids are about to learn a lesson in the free market. I walked down the street to the other stand. There was a cheerful little tyke there with an appealing smile. How much for the lemonade? I asked. Oh, it's just a quarter, he said. Great, I said. I will take a cup. Oh, you want a cup? The cup is $2.50. All right, that's it. People actually come up to me afterwards and like, is that based on a true story? It might be. Are you okay there? Are you okay? I'm just checking because. All right. I want to make sure. Yeah, you never know what's going to set people off. Last night, I was reading the pig roasting thing, and I got to family fun pack of trichinosis, and some guy literally fell out of his chair. Because nothing's funnier than a bacterial disease that can just kill the hell out of you. So, in any event. So that's the reading portion of the evening. What time is it now? Is this? That's not right. It's 7:43. We got about 20 minutes to ask questions and stuff like that. So I'm going to open up to questions. The general idea here is that you can ask me about lock-in, which we have not addressed at all. You can talk about some of the other books. We can talk about some of my extracurricular activities, like the TV shows that are being based off of the books, the video game that I'm doing, the blog, which Dwayne mentioned earlier. You can ask me about my personal life. Honestly, you can ask me any question. I will answer any question. Sometimes the answer will be, I can't believe you asked that question, please leave. As long as we're clear on that, let's go to the questions. So, raise hands, anyone. Start with you.
So I'm going to preface this by saying that I've not yet read Lock-In, nor have I really been following anything you've said online about Lock-In, so I apologize if you've already
I don't know you or anything about you, but okay, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if you're choosing the Lock-In phenomenon, was that inspired by being interested in talking about disabilities in general, or if it was specific to the Lock-In phenomenon? I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit.
Right. So basically, where I got the idea for doing the lock-in, if it was a general sort of interest in disability stuff, or if it was something more specific. And for me, I had been interested in the idea of the specific thing of being locked in. Obviously, Diving Bell and the Butterfly, and there are a couple of other things that talked about it. And the other thing is that I would be talking to people about, they're like, so what are you working on? I was like, I've been thinking about this idea, about this story about, people who are locked into their bodies, and everybody goes, because everybody freaks out about that, right? Like I told my editor, I think the next book is going to be about that. He says, I don't think I'm going to read that, right? Because, it just weirds people out. And in one sense, that's kind of interesting. On the other sense, that meant that I kind of had to do it, because if you can make people face something that really creeps them out and still make them read the book because they're really gripped with the story, then you're on to something. That said, as soon as I knew that I was going to do that, it was incumbent on me not to screw up the issues of disability culture, is basically what it comes down to. And so I had to do a fair amount of research with that. And a lot of it was, start with Google, work your way back. But I also had friends who are actively involved in various cultures. For example, my friend Natasha Cordes, who I went to high school with, she got her doctorate from Gallaudet, which is the Deaf University in Washington, D.C. She is a psychologist at the California School for the Deaf in Riverside. She is married to a deaf man. And so for the last quarter of a century, she and I would have discussions about that part of her life, the whole deaf culture, which is from the outside, from someone who is not deaf himself, absolutely fascinating, because it is this group of people who have developed have their own language, have their own concerns, have their own identity issues and traits, and they take it all very seriously. And what you find out is that things that you think would be absolutely like a no-brainer are really points of contention. Like, for example, cochlear implants that allow people to hear. Is this something that, as a hearing person, you're like, well, obviously that would be something that you would want to have. And a lot of people who are deaf are like, no, we don't. Because deafness to them is not a disability. Deafness is a part of their identity. And to take that away lessens their identity both individually and as a culture. So there's a huge discussion about that. Whether you teach your kids ASL or not ASL. Whether all these questions, which from the outside seem like, well, obviously you should do this and obviously you should do that. And then it's like, well, no, actually, you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. And as we all know, if there's anything that straight white men are very good about, is talking about things we don't know in a very authoritative sort of way. So having known her and knowing these issues exist gave me a baseline foundation of how not to screw that up. That said, one of the things that I said that I'm very interested in is now the book is out there in the world. Now folks who are part of disability cultures are reading it, and I fully expect, and would actually be genuinely surprised if it didn't happen, that I'm going to get feedback and they were like, A, good try, B, here's where you screwed up. And when that happens, it'll be like, great, thank you, because I need to know that. Because if there's a sequel, then I don't want to make the same mistakes twice. I want to make brand new mistakes. So for me, Mary Ann Mohan-Raj wrote a piece about writing the other, which is, whoever you are, occasionally you will be tasked to write characters who are not exactly like you. And she was like, A, you need to do it. B, you're going to fail. C, it's okay that you fail as long as you learn, right? And so I kind of take that to heart, particularly with this, but in any time when I'm writing someone who is not 100% like me. And because of that, it kind of makes it easier. I mean, so I did the work. I know that there's going to be places that I'm going to miss, and hopefully when I'm corrected about that, people will be nice about it. But even if they're not, it'll still be worth listening to. So next question. Yes, right there.
I have a question and a request.
Question and request. Okay.
Yes. So my question, the gender of the main character is not defined explicitly anywhere in the book.
Spoiler.
I'm maybe,
Okay.
but I think most people have read the book already, so sorry. So
It's too late. We're going on. Let's go. Okay, so
what inspired you to do that?
because I could. What? No, it's not so easy, and it's been very, very interesting. I mean, this is something that's not really a spoiler because it doesn't affect the course of the book, but it's something that I do generally want people to discover on their own. And the reason for that is because for me, it's very, very interesting to find out what their default is, right? Like I showed it to my wife, and Chris is a woman to my wife. She's like, that's definitely a woman. I showed it to some other friends, and I'm like, nope, that's a dude, And the answer is, it is what you default to, and there is it says something about your own psychology. That said, there are things about it that would automatically recommend people to default it to a guy. One, because a guy wrote it. Two, because there are all sorts of gender identifications and tropes and stuff like that in my own writing that I can't completely wash out because I'm a dude, which may show up. But then again, it also depends on who you are as a person. This is one of the reasons why the audio has 2 different audio versions. And like I said, I didn't tell anybody leading up to it because I didn't want people to be colored one way or the other about it, because like when the reviews come in, I'm fascinated to see what, because people just do it automatically. They automatically gender. And Chris could be male, Chris could be female, Chris could be intersex. Chris could have been born one way and decided to go another way. Chris could have decided that gender didn't matter because, being a Hayden, it's not exactly a thing that is going to be particularly important. So for me, it's been really interesting to see the responses. And it's also been interesting, like I said, to have people, after they read it, it's like, it was wonderful. It's like, great. what do you think of Chris? Oh, Chris is great. And some people get it immediately and some people don't. I mean, I had a whole bunch of beta readers and only one beta reader managed to go, hey, you haven't made that specified. But most people just whoop, straight ahead. So that's been kind of interesting. And now you've ruined it for everybody. So well done, you. Now, yeah. But a ukulele. All right, bring it up. Is it tuned? Wait, the first thing, is it tuned?
So, it's my sister actually tuned it last night, so I don't.
All right, bring it up here. All right, hold on. All right, here, let's see. And it's green, which is my favorite color.
It's my favorite color too.
All right, let's see. No, see? That is so. Nope. The nice thing about the ukulele is even when it's not tuned, as this one is not, it still sounds winsome. And it makes any even really depressing songs sound really cheerful. Was it? I've been looking so long at my pictures of you that I almost believe that they're real. You know, so it's the Cheerful Cure song on the ukulele. There you go. All right, next question. Anyone? You and then you.
Following up on her question about researching your books, a lot of them deal with the military or future military. You get a lot of feedback from people in the military, and have you found yourself incorporating that more in either how you research or how you write the book?
Well, I come from a family that has a fairly strong military tradition. My brother was a ranger in the first Iraq War. My father was in submarines. My wife's father was in submarines. So I had a good general background of knowing people who were in the military and also not sort of discounting that particular type of service to the community. So that was a good start. And then the second thing about it is, I would show it to my friends who are, stuff that I was writing in the military and go, does this make sense? Because,
Good evening,
hold on.
shoppers. University Bookstore will be closing in 5 minutes. Please begin making your final selection.
So I had people that I could bounce stuff off of, and also just again a lot of research. Like when I was doing Old Man's War, one of the books that I read was Boot by a fellow named De La Cruz, and it was about Marine boot camp. Now the boot camp of Old Man's War is not one-to-one what the boot camp of the Marines was. But at the same time, you wanted to make it recognizable to the people who've been through that experience would go, yeah, that makes sense, or no, that doesn't make sense. So a lot of it was a lot of research bouncing off of family. And then, mostly speaking, generally the military folk who have read the books have been pretty positive. They, not so much about specific things, about military maneuvers and so on and so forth, but the idea of, when you're in the middle of it, what are you fighting for? And you're fighting for the man or the woman who is right next to you, because that's your world at that particular moment. So, and then every once in a while someone has some criticism, or they're like, well, let me tell you this by why that gun won't work the way that you think it will. And, again, one of the things that I actually was really happy to learn early on was to not invest my ego in being right all the time. But to invest my ego in working to become more correct about things. Which, once you do that, then you stop being defensive and you start being more like, when people say, well, I have some criticisms, they're not saying, and now I'm going to stab you in the eye and go, they are actually honestly trying to offer you something that's useful. And sometimes it's useful and sometimes it's not, but you just let it go. When it's not useful, and when it is useful, you're like, that is useful, thank you so much. So for me, again, lots of research, lots of bouncing stuff off of friends and family who have been in the military, and just fundamentally respecting what the military is and why it's there. Yes, sir?
Okay, so I was just wondering if you had any kind of writing rituals or regimen, like I will write this much each day, or I will write this part of the house.
Do I have any writing rituals or regimens? Generally speaking, I write between 8 and 12, 8 in the morning and 12, because that's when I drop my daughter off at school. And my brain is fresher in the morning because I've gotten old. I mean, I used to write between like midnight and 4 because, you know, which was great when my daughter was an infant because I would take the night shift while my wife would sleep. And so that was, you know, very useful. But nowadays, like I said, in the morning, and my goal is 2,000 words or writing for 4 hours, whichever comes first. Because some days, you know, I'll hit 2,000 words very quickly. I mean, years of training as a journalist helps you learn to write very quickly. And then some days it's just like pulling, you know, your teeth. And after 4 hours, if I've not done enough writing, it's like it's time to stop because I'm not going to get any, you know, my brain's not going to get any more creative that day. And there is email to do and zombies to kill. So, so that's typically what I do. I do think it's important as much as you can to build up the muscle memory of just a routine. I mean, there are people who are like, you know, waiting to be inspired by writing. And people are like, so what inspires you to write? It's like my mortgage inspires me to write. Because I like having a house, right? And if I don't actually, you know, do my mortgage, then I will be kicked out and, you know, on the street and so on and so forth. And people, you know, was like, well, that's not very romantic. I was like, it's very romantic to have a house. You know, but I always tell people, it's like, you know why? Dostoevsky wrote Crime and Punishment. Do you know why Crime and Punishment is as long as Crime and Punishment is?
Paid by the word.
What?
Paid by the word.
Paid by the word and gambling debts. And it was serialized. So it was in his interest to each chapter, his examination of guilt. It's because he was stringing it as long as he could. And then finally an editor said, it's time to wrap this thing up. And so if you've read the book, it's like, angst, guilt, angst, guilt, angst, guilt. Turn myself in Siberia. You know, boom, 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 you know, because it was done. He wasn't getting any more money off of it. It's like, all right, now we're done. And so I always tell people the inspiration is not actually the important thing. The important thing is what you end up putting on the page. So, yes, and then yes, and then yes, and then I think we're going to have to stop. So,
John,
go.
on her question earlier about Chris.
Yeah.
Okay, this is something you've done before in a slightly different manner in the Android stream with Sam Berlin.
Right.
Gender or...
Yeah.
So I caught that.
Good for you.
Okay, but then I started, well, wait. So this isn't a question, it's just an observation. One, you've done it before, and two, I started looking for it and couldn't decide.
Good evening, shoppers. Thank you for shopping with us. University Bookstore is now closed. Please bring your final selections to the registers. We look forward to serving you again tomorrow beginning at 9 a.m. Thank you and have a good evening.
And we're done. Thank you, everyone. Yes, I've done it before, and because I think it's interesting to do. I occasionally annoy people because I've done that, because they're like, that's stunt writing. But on the other hand, I think it's depending on the character. The first time I did it with Sam really was, I started writing the character, and I was like, after about a page and a half, I was like, haven't assigned. I'm like, well, I guess I won't. And we'll see if I can continue to do this. With God Engines, where I have a character named Shawl, who is also not gendered. There's a specific textual reason for that that's predicated on the kind of world it is, because it's a really screwed up world. I don't know if you've read God Engines. God Engines is the one that I wrote to prove to people that I don't always write optimistic stuff. And it happened, you know, people read it and they're like, I just read God Engines, do you need a hug? And I was like, no, because I had so much fun writing that. And with this one, it really was, I had this specific thing of, because particularly in the last couple of years, you know, all the stuff that's going on in science fiction about, women and going on about in nerd culture and all that sort of stuff. Part of it was in a way that didn't detract from the novel itself. I wanted to make people confront their own defaults and assumptions and so on and so forth. Not in a way that's like, hi, I'm hitting you over the head with a message, because that always works. But in the sense of a way that when because sooner or later people pick it up, you know, or people get told, and once they do figure it out, they're like, you know, and they start thinking about it, and then because you've basically slipping in under the radar, it's a way for people to you know, think about it on their own terms. And some people are like, whatever, you know, but there are some people who are like, you know what, this is actually really kind of interesting and it's made me think about this. I've already had that in emails from people where they're like, I finally picked that up and it blew my mind and now I got to think about this stuff some more. It was like, great, you know, that's a reason to do it. So for me, it was a textual experiment that was hopefully, like I said, you know, hopefully flew under people's radar, did not affect the enjoyment of the book, but once it was there, adds another level to it. So, where was the next question? You, yes.
I really like human division. My one thing is there's a lot of questions at the end of that book. Are we going to get our answers in this next one, or will we have to wait for a book?
Maybe, no. I envision it as a 2-book arc. So yes, we will get everything answered, and yeah, there's no point in stringing you guys out because it's like, you know, there was essentially a cliffhanger in the last one, and part of it was because the way that we structured it was in episodes, and that we were looking at it almost like a TV season, and so, you know, at the end of the season 1, you have the cliffhanger, and people are like, how could you do that? I was like, it's like a TV series. I don't care. I want to know. And I'm like, my bad. Sorry. What can I do? Yeah. What? Well, yeah, you know, it's like, you guys just don't understand my vision, is basically what I'm saying here. So, but yes, everything will be answered and counted for and stuff like that. And then I will probably step away from the Old Man's War universe for a couple of years. And then hopefully the TV series will, you know, fill in all the gaps and I'll just have to lie around and let the money roll over me. So, because that would be awesome, I'm not going to lie. It's like, oh, how's the TV series? I don't know, but they just sent me a bag of money. I'm going to put it with the other bags of money. There we go. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I'll just count it some more. Put it in a hot tub, rub it around my body. We just bought a hot tub. And I don't know how to feel about that. Because it's not just like, you know, like a little jacuzzi tub. It's like, it's a monster. It's like it's like an RV with water, you know, and you lie in it and you can do, it's just sort of like, it's just kind of, and then we have to, because if you buy a hot tub, you know, if you give a mouse a cookies, wine, and a glass of milk, if you get yourself a hot tub, you got to have a gazebo, right? So now we have a gazebo and a hot tub, and it's going to be put in the back of the house, and it's like, oh, but the concrete slab in the back of the house needs to be torn up and put down again, and it's just like, ugh. So what I'm really trying to say is buy my book. We have time for one last question, so she's pointing to the point. Get him. All right, so question.
Old Man's War project, I thought that was a movie originally.
It was.
Okay, have they turned it into a TV show now, or what's the status of it?
It was a movie. They had the option for 5 years. They wrote a couple of scripts, just didn't work, and they stopped. And that was fine because they paid me every step of the way. So that was nice. Basically, the instant it stopped being optioned for a movie, we got multiple offers for a TV series. And so we went with the people who we thought were going to do the best job, which, as it turned out, were the people that were going to do the movie. They brought in new writers, and they also... Sci-Fi, which is the science fiction channel, came on to do it, and it's been really interesting because one, in many ways, it'll probably be I think it's going to be really interesting as a TV series because we'll have so much time to explore the universe, right? On the other hand, we told people, yes, it's going to it's at Sci-Fi, and they're like, Sci-Fi, because Sci-Fi has burned us all before, right? Speaking as the guy who's was creative consultant on Stargate Universe, which only got 2 seasons because they moved it to a different date because they wanted to give the hour that Stargate Universe had to wrestling, because that's so science fictional. So we were aware that there was that history there, but they basically have a new set of leadership there, and the new set of leadership has this crazy idea that maybe a channel that's called Sci-Fi should have sci-fi on it. And so they got Old Man's War, they got magicians from Lev Grossman. They got The Expanse from James S.A. Corey, and that's already in production. And so basically, well, all of these things kind of gives us the opinion that that they may actually be on the right path with this sort of stuff. So we had some, we took a leap of faith with them, and so far it's been pretty good. I've met with the writers who are adapting it. Smart guys, seem to be, they like the books, everything seems to be going well, and we will see what happens with it. And maybe, they're writing the script will have to get approved. Once they get approved, then they're going to do a pilot, and then maybe the series, and so on and so forth. You never know until it is actually on the screen. And then once it's on the screen, it could be canceled 3 shows in. Or it could run for 7 seasons, and I, once again, rub myself with money. I'm hoping for the rub myself with money scenario, frankly. I'm not going to lie to you, that would be great. But no matter what, it's kind of fun watching that go. So so that's me, and that's everything that I came here to say. And now Dwayne's going to come down, and he's going to tell you how the signing thing goes. Don't worry, I'm going to be here until all y'all are signed. So, it might take a while, but we'll get it done. It's like, oh God, we'll make it end. I'm not Neil Gaiman. I don't have to be here for 12 hours. Thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate it.